Hi, I'm Jacqueline.
And I'm Courtney, and this is Caffeinated Crimes.
I have a new setup and I was trying to figure out how close to get to my mic, but I also don't think I can sit in this position the whole time. So maybe I'll just yell from way back here. Hopefully it
Well,
sounds
I feel
decent.
like usually when I edit, I have to turn you down anyway. So,
Yeah, I am usually on the louder side, so it should be
yeah,
fine.
it's only at certain points, like certain
Yeah,
points, it's like, I gotta turn this down a little bit.
yeah. Not like a general, but like, a laugh or a
Hmm.
random loud noise.
Yeah, and sometimes my audio is just really quiet. So I'm like, I
Yeah.
gotta turn it up.
Like I gotta crank this up a little bit. I don't know if you had anything planned to talk about, but our conversation right
Not,
before we got started, do you guys pop all your joints? Do you enjoy popping your joints? Because Courtney
yeah.
was trying to pop her neck, but she's like afraid to. And I was like, oh no, I just do like a boom, boom, boom. And then I
And she
pop my
just like
neck. And,
cracked it.
but I also, you've heard my hips every time I stand
Yeah,
up.
that's
So,
true. Like I just wonder, because my knees crack a lot. My
yeah,
knees, like if I just bend them, will crack.
yeah.
Um, but not a lot. And my back, I can pop my back, but like my fingers, I hate that feeling of popping my fingers.
Oh, I love popping my fingers.
Like especially when people do this knuckle, the little knuckle,
Oh,
the top
interesting.
knuckle.
Yeah.
Ashton used to do that to me. I think she'd like grab it and pop. Hate it.
So I'm
I mean,
guessing you don't
sometimes
like when
I'll
they pop your toes when you get a pedicure.
No, God, no. I'm still traumatized from that time we got a pedicure and that guy grabbed every single one of my toes and just pulled and popped it. And I was like, this
Oh
is
my
my
God.
literal hell. Because that was the man who also would stare at you the whole time. So
Was
he's
that
pulling my toes and staring me in the
making
eyeballs.
eye contact? Was that the same one that was like, oh, did you do your nails yourself? Like talking about like your fingernails? And you were like, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, I can tell. Do you want me to do this?
Yeah, he was like trying to sell because you remember afterwards you were like, I kind of wanted to get a manicure, so I was just gonna pay for yours until he said that because
And then I
now
was like,
he's just
never
rude.
mind. We're not doing it.
Like, yeah, he was like, oh, to paint your own nails, and I was like, yeah, and he's like, I can tell. Like, sorry,
You're like, yes,
quit
I
popping
definitely
my
want.
toes.
Like, yes, I definitely want to
Yeah,
give you more money now that you have insulted me.
yeah,
But
I
yeah,
don't know why.
I
Like my neck, I'm scared. I'm scared I'm gonna like break my own neck.
yeah.
Um, I don't think. I'm sure that's very rare, but
I don't know.
still.
I love popping my neck. Like even now talking about it, I'm sad that I can't do it again because I just did it. So it's
Yeah.
I gotta wait and like
I'm trying to like it need desperately needs to be cracked,
yeah.
but I'm too scared to. And I've only been to a chiropractor once,
Hmm.
and that was terrifying.
Chiropractors scare me a lot.
Yeah. Because
Like
it's
I
like
know I'll pop on my own
besides
stuff, but like
like you're putting your faith in somebody a lot, you know?
yeah,
A lot. But also like people, it's kind of like not like a fully real science,
exactly. There's not
you
any
know?
evidence behind it. Not to say if you've used a chiropractor and it works great, happy for you,
Yeah.
you do your thing. But yeah, I personally have some
Yeah, because
reservations.
basically the one time I went is back when I worked downtown in like the big uh I don't know what it's called now, First Horizon building, whatever. Um, there was a chiropractor on that floor, and he gave like everyone who worked on that floor like a free adjustment or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
why you make it sound like a car? You know,
Get you a tune-up.
literally. So I was like, okay, sure. And so then I was like, oof. But then there was a bunch of people on the floor who did it and was like, I feel worse than I felt
Oh
before.
no.
But the problem was he was only there maybe 2 or 3 days a week, but he was right on the way to the bathroom. So then every time you go to the bathroom, he'd be like, hey, Courtney, when are you gonna come back for your next appointment? And I'm like, I'm not.
And that's how Courtney got a UTI from holding her bladder all day.
I there were two ways to the bathroom. There was the shortcut where it'd be like literally just like one right and then out the door and you're
Uh-huh.
right there. I would walk around that entire
Yeah.
floor to
Don't
go
blame
pee because
you.
it was too awkward.
Yeah.
I didn't want to deal with it. I just wanted you to leave me alone.
Yeah. I don't blame you. That's you're like, no, please stop. Please stop trying to sell me your
Yeah.
services. I'm good. I'm good.
What I desperately need is a massage. I need someone
Mm,
to just rub all my. You have a gift
I
card.
know. I was
You
like, I
need to
need
go
to
get one.
use my massage gift card. Like every like week or so, I'm just suddenly like, Andrew, I need to make that damn appointment while I'm still pregnant. Because
Yeah.
well, that was my thought too in the beginning was like, because Courtney got it for me for my birthday, which was a few months ago. So I'm like, let me wait till I'm like good and need it, you know?
Yeah.
But I think I need it now. We've
Yeah.
reached that
Because you don't want
point.
to wait too long where you're like,
Exactly.
I don't want my water to break on
I don't want
the
to have this
table.
baby at the
Like
masseuse.
a late August, early September is a good,
Yeah. Yes.
yeah.
So I need to get that
And you can
scheduled.
make
So,
appointments online. You don't have to call them or
oh,
anything.
that's
So,
good. That helps. That makes
so you
things
don't have to
easier.
be that awkward person. You can like pick who you want and everything. So,
Oh, nice. Okay. I'll do that.
because
Well,
I,
yeah.
another conversation topic,
Yes.
I only want to be massaged by a woman.
Yeah.
And
Same.
like I was talking to like Dallas and he was like, no, I only want a man. Like I don't
Yeah.
want a woman. Like that's weird. So I don't know.
Hmm.
I'm sure there's plenty
Interesting.
of fine men masseuse out there.
Yeah.
And like if I had to, I would. But it's just I feel like I'd be very hyper aware of
Yeah.
my body versus like a woman being like, oh, it's okay, got a little cellulite there.
Like I feel like you're just more comfortable, you know? It's just like,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel that for sure.
I know. I had one girl I really liked. She was great, but she moved.
Oh,
So
that's always sad.
yeah.
It's always the good ones. I also, speaking of appointments, desperately need a haircut. Like it's just it's getting to a point that's
Getting out of
ridiculous.
hand.
And I had to do something with it because I was trying to decide what to do about my color. Because I was like, well, I did want to get some more blonde, but like at this point, like summer's almost over. So I'm like, do I even want to bother with the blonde or do I just want to let it grow out and it's, dirty blonde,
You
light
should do
brown?
kind of like a balayage thing where it's like
Yeah, maybe.
your roots are more natural, but then you have like the blonde at like the bottom.
Yeah, I might. I need to trim it one way or the other. And also decide if I'm just going to let the grays be here or if I want to cover those up because I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway,
Anyway,
now that we've thoroughly bored you to death,
now that we've
um,
talked about our whole self-care routine. Also last week we brought you the very riveting soup gate, or maybe 2 weeks ago.
mhm,
I don't remember when that was, but we don't have any updates. So if you were waiting,
nope.
still no updates. Still more bags though. They're still coming. But no updates on what's happening.
Now it's basically a lot of people thinking what we thought that it's this guy who's like spearheading it, and now it's him just like making jokes about it and him being like, "We're getting close to an update." Oh no, we're not, and it's
And you're like, are you really?
annoying.
Or yeah.
Okay, and before we get into this case, if I sounded a little weird in the intro, we've discovered I have a wonky cord that I will be ordering a new one on Amazon.
It's a little
So
afraid.
a little bit coming apart a little bit. So we're going to monitor it for the rest of the time, make sure it's in a good spot. But if I sounded a little weird, we noticed. We noticed. So
It should be better from here on out, and next recording should be good to go.
yes, yes. So but it makes sense because for the past couple weeks we've been like, why do I sound weird? My internet is not saying there's an issue. It's my cord. So
But Courtney has restarted her internet many, many times thinking it was her internet. So
I have, I really have, because I got new internet because I'll explain in my perk of the week. And I'm like, there is a router literally 4 inches away from my computer. I was like, there's no
yeah.
way.
You're like, this doesn't make sense. And it's like a new internet provider. It's like a whole, like,
Yeah.
how could this possibly still be an issue? Well, now we know, and it makes a
Now
lot
we
more
know.
sense that way.
Yep. All right, so we are going to go ahead and get into this episode. Our sources are a People Magazine Investigates episode. It's season 4, episode 3, Without a Trace. The Office of the Attorney General for the California Department of Justice website, and the San Francisco Gate website, article, whatever. Um, in 1984, in San Francisco, California, Anne and David Collins lived in a 5-bedroom apartment on Sutter Street with 8 children. And the children in order were Laura, Michelle, Michael, Stephen, Gary, Kevin, Kenneth, and Brian. So, very big family in this
A few
apartment.
of them.
Yep. Um, and the family would eat dinner together every night and talk about their day. And David was a nursing student and truck driver, so times could be hard providing for a big family, but the family was close and enjoyed spending time together. So Kevin was more quiet and he didn't say much. He frequently played with his brothers, and his siblings said he was like the tough one of the younger boys. He was a rambunctious child and he struggled academically because of his dyslexia, and he had to have some extra help with school. But Kevin was very excited because his 10th birthday was coming up, and he was like, felt like it was a big birthday. It was like a milestone. It's like, I'm turning 10. It's those double digits. Like, I'm a big kid now, you know?
Hmm.
So, the Collins lived in the Western Addition, which is like a culturally mixed neighborhood that includes the Fillmore district, which is like um Ashbury Height, which is like in the 1960s was like the mecca of the hippie. Like it was a huge, people know that street name. Like that was a very big culturally significant neighborhood.
Yeah.
And it was a busy area and there was always something happening. And the Collins children went to the Catholic high school, St. Agnes, and the kids would play hide and seek in the street. And on February 10th, Kevin was at St. Agnes for basketball practice. And that night, the family sat down for dinner and noticed Kevin's seat was empty. So the coach would usually drop Kevin off. So Anne started to get worried because it was getting late and she was like, he should be home from practice by now. Anne called the coach and said Kevin wasn't home. And the coach did say Kevin was at practice, but for some reason, Kevin didn't get in the coach's van for the ride home. So the older brothers went out to search the street, and they ran into a family friend who said he saw Kevin earlier that evening waiting for the bus at the corner of Masonic and Oak. So they couldn't find him and they went to the police station, and the police kind of just dismissed it and said he was probably just playing somewhere with friends. And Kevin's uncle in this People Magazine Investigates episode said that in San Francisco those days, police would sometimes not respond to a kid who was missing until after 3 days. So 3 days of them
Wow.
missing. And we all know the first 48 hours is the most important in investigation. We have a TV show now called 48 Hours.
Hmm.
Like,
Like three
it's
days. Oh my God.
for a kid missing. And it makes so much sense, like in other episodes we've done where people are like, well, I waited because I didn't think I could for 24 hours. And it's like, because you've been told so many times, like, don't
Exactly.
report him missing yet. Like, David then decides to start searching the Hyde Ashbury section himself since police won't help. And Anne stays at home by the phone in case anyone calls. And Anne does call Michelle and Laura, so they were living on their own, and tells them like Kevin is missing. So they both come home to try and help find Kevin, who's been missing for 2 days now. So they come home after 2 days of him missing and are like, all right, you guys need us to help try and find Kevin. So 3 days after Kevin disappears, San Francisco police finally meet with David and Anne, and police immediately suspected he was a runaway and tried to investigate the family and his home life. So they waited 3 days, and now they're blaming his family.
God, this poor
So
family.
So the Collins really tried to help the police search, like they're searching the neighborhood. They recruited Anne's twin brother Michael, other friends to help. They put together an emergency flyer with his picture on it and they put it everywhere. So they're basically grassroots mission at this point, and they're like, police aren't helping us, like we're taking this into our own hands. And they even set up a command center at St. Agnes and set up phones for people to call in tips. So a few people do call in who say they saw him the night he went missing, and then like the family tries to pass those along to the police. A classmate thought they saw him at Masonic and Height and said there was a white man next to him with a Great Dane. And another witness tells people that they saw Kevin talking to a man with a dog further down from the bus stop in front of a home. So detectives go to this home to see if the residents there like know anything about Kevin, saw Kevin, anything like that. And it seems the person with the dog was Dan Therian. He lived about a block away from the corner where Kevin was standing. And when police got there, the homeowner opened the door and said, "Oh, I've been expecting you." Never a great sign.
No,
Kind
that's usually how Law and Order SVU episode starts out.
exactly. Kind of an odd greeting.
Yeah.
So Dan Therian admits that he'd been arrested before, and they look closer into his background and see he was arrested in 1981 for a crime involving a child. He had taken a child out of a store, but the child was able to escape and run away, and Dan skipped bail, so he was later rearrested and sentenced to 6 months in prison. And Dan has a roommate named Jack Chow, and Jack Chow does not have an arrest record. So they searched the home, found nothing suspicious or any evidence that Kevin was there. Again, it's probably what, 5 days later, so probably isn't any evidence.
Yeah, had plenty of time to get rid of whatever they needed to.
Yeah. And police leave the house. The next day, they put his previous mugshot in a photo lineup, but the two witnesses weren't able to pick him out of the lineup as they saw with Kevin. So police moved on, even though it was like he was kind of at this house, had like a dog matching the description, had this previous arrest record. They were like, well, nothing here, and moved on. So Anne was very distraught over Kevin being missing, of course, so she didn't leave the house in case he called. So Laura and Michelle stepped up taking care of the younger children, and David continued to search the neighborhood for any sign of Kevin. So the police discovered a report involving the Collins family and a foster child. So a foster child who'd lived with them previously had reported that David had broken his leg, so now they're focusing again on the Collins family, and they're like, maybe David's a suspect. But they made him take a lie detector test. He passed it and they quickly cleared him, which, even if he didn't pass it, we know you should not administer a lie detector test on the father of a missing child.
Yeah.
So they had a few more leads, but they were all dead ends, and local coverage of Kevin's case continued. A local dairy farmer had an idea to put Kevin's face on the side of their milk carton, and he was one of the first for this to happen. And within weeks, his face was in homes across America. And they soon started putting other children on there as well, and it became quite common. So I think a lot of people remember that in like the 80s, 90s, you'd have your milk carton and there'd be a missing kid on the side of it. So Kevin was one of the first children to like have his picture on this milk carton.
Oh, wow.
So the attention Kevin's case got helped Anne out of her depression and started focusing on finding Kevin and helping others. So Anne and David started a foundation to help others and called it the Kevin Collins Foundation. They put in a 24-hour hotline, but it was at their home, so it was nonstop. So, I mean, in your house, and you're just getting calls all the time from everywhere.
Oh, that's so hard.
Yeah, especially when you have like, and we get into it a little bit more later, but like 7 other children who are like, which I mean, Michelle and Laura were like, you have older children too, but
Yeah.
still like a lot of children who like need you, but are also
Mm-hmm.
sleeping in that home who it's like just nonstop.
Yeah.
They continued trying to keep Kevin's face in the public, and Anne and David would travel to look for Kevin, and they would go to various city fairs and set up a booth with pictures of multiple missing children. 4 weeks after he vanished, he was on the cover of Newsweek, and now he was like a household name. And this obviously brought on a lot of attention from other police stations and psychics. Again, they had this 24-hour hotline in their home. It would just keep going off nonstop after he was on the cover. And like hundreds of psychics were calling in with different tips, but none of those panned out. And 17 months after he disappeared, police tried to look at other crimes in the Bay Area. And they did find a sadistic duo who could be connected to Kevin, who was Charles Ng and Leonard Lake. So Charles Ng had stolen a vase from a store and drove off. They found the car associated, and the owner was Leonard Lake, but like when they found the car, he'd given them like a false name, and it wasn't until they like arrested him that they really discovered who he was. And when officers go to interview him, he asks for some water, drinks it, and soon he starts convulsing. He went to the hospital and was there for 6 days before he died because he had taken a cyanide pill. So, kind
Wow. Again, this is
of
some Law and Order SVU shit.
it's
Like, I
straight
feel
out of
like
the Law and Order SVU
I feel like there
episode.
has to be an episode based on this. I'm
There
gonna look
has
into
to
that
be.
later.
Yeah. That'll be our August Patreon episode. We'll both watch it and we'll discuss it if
Perfect.
you
Sounds
if you
great.
find it. But police are now wondering like why would this man decide to die by suicide rather than be in custody? Because right now, all they think is you have a car associated with a guy who stole something from a store.
Yeah. So detectives look at the car and find a paper that has a Wilseyville address in Calaveras County, and police go to the address in the Sierra Nevada mountains and they find something horrific. So there's basically like a workshop that had a small room that looked like a cell, and inside the room, police find restraints and torture devices. They also find pictures of victims who have been held captive here, and police search the grounds around the property and basically find this like murder mill. They found 50 pounds worth of bone fragments at various burn sites, and the bones are likely the remains of multiple victims. They also found videotapes and knew that they had multiple female victims, and police also found two large buckets buried that contained the name and personal identification of many victims. They also found Leonard's journal that covered a couple of years. So Charles and Leonard worked together to fulfill their dark fantasies at this home. And from the journal, they discovered that some of the victims were abducted from the neighborhood that Kevin Collins went missing. In 1984 and 1985, Leonard and Charles went back and forth between San Francisco and Wilseyville looking for victims. They would kidnap people off the street, very similar to what happened to Kevin. So San Francisco reached out to the detectives leading the investigation to see if they could be connected to Kevin. So Anne found out about the possible link to Kevin from a newspaper that called her house looking for a statement. Police were able to identify 6 adults and 2 small children as victims, but they know that there were many more based on the amount of bones they found. But could some of these be Kevin's remains? Unfortunately, none of the bones were found to be Kevin's, so this just ended up being another dead end. Charles Ng was eventually captured and put on trial for the murder of 6 men, 3 women, and 2 infants, which is like, what a horrific side story. Like,
I know. That was the thing. Like at first I was like, oh, like when it first started, I was like, well, if it's not this, and then I was like, oh, I have to include this because this is
yeah,
I've never heard of that.
no,
Never
me
heard of these two
neither.
people. And then that was unearthed, and I was like, oof.
Yeah, maybe we should look more into them and see if there's
I
enough to
definitely
cover.
I want to see if
Yeah,
there's like more to cover there.
yeah. So David and Anne continued to travel the country and try to find out what happened to Kevin. Kevin's siblings really struggled with his disappearance. Michelle ended up having really debilitating panic attacks for about 5 years, and she eventually dropped out of school as well as 2 of their other brothers. The younger boys were afraid to leave the apartment, and obviously there's just a lot of emotional fallout from this trauma. They all had nightmares and anxiety. Again, you have 7 other children. Like, they have no closure. They have no idea what happened to their brother.
Hmm.
So the Collins family gets another lead when police started looking into another murderer who attacked young boys. So an inmate at San Luis Obispo State Prison tells a detective that he has information about a child murderer. He says his cellmate, John Dunkel, who was in prison for a residential burglary, had been telling him about how he killed young men. Dunkel told his cellmate that he had killed 2 12-year-old boys and one 15-year-old boy between 1981 and 1984 in Northern California. There was a 4th murder that he talked about, but he didn't know the name. John Dunkel had been the prime suspect in 3 murders for a while now, so they go to talk to him about it, and he agrees. He talked about a victim who he kidnapped and threw off the Golden State Bridge, and Kevin did fit his victim type, and he worked for the IRS in San Francisco around the time Kevin went missing. So police visit him while he's awaiting trial in hopes that he will identify this unknown victim, but Dunkel is now unwilling to cooperate and will not talk to them. And the San Francisco Police Department has no evidence to tie him to Kevin Collins' disappearance. 4 years have passed since Kevin disappeared, and Anne realizes that her family needs her more. So she quit the foundation, and David felt like this was her just giving up on trying to find Kevin, and they eventually got divorced in 1989. The Kevin Collins Foundation closed its doors in May of 1996 due to a lack of funding. There were other organizations popping up around this time, including the Polyclass Foundation. So basically, a lot of like competition for funding. And David said the money started dropping even before that, and organizations just weren't supporting these types of organizations like they used to. But David still hoped to work to raise awareness for missing children. On February 10th, 1994, the family decided to hold a private memorial and dedicate a simple marble bench in Kevin's memory. And said at this point they had to accept that he was gone, but they never had like a funeral or a grave or anything to visit, so this was their way of remembering him. And Anne said it was a reminder and not a grave. In 2013, Kevin's family put a lot of pressure on the police department to solve his case. They reopened the investigation to see if they could find out what happened to Kevin. So fresh eyes look at this case, and they just couldn't get over the witness statements about seeing Kevin with a man and a dog. So they circle back to Dan Therian, who they interviewed back in 1984, and police now dig deeper into Dan's background because obviously that's easier to do in 2013 versus 1984, and they find out that he had more charges they were unaware of. So Dan was wanted in Canada for kidnapping and molesting two young boys. Again, he jumped bail and made it to the Bay Area. So San Francisco had known about him all along, but never followed up or told the family, and detectives are really feeling like Dan has to be their guy. However, Dan had died in San Francisco, so interviewing him would not be possible. Detectives looked at the records when they interviewed him and discovered that while they searched the house and the backyard, they did not search the garage. So cold case detectives contacted the current owner and asked to search with cadaver dogs. The owner gave permission for the garage area, and the dog did react, and they obtained a search warrant to dig up the garage area. Police did eventually find bones after digging up the cement, however, they were not a match to Kevin. So investigators also discover that Dan's roommate, Jack Chow, was more than a roommate and was actually his partner. So when Dan died, Jack moved back to Canada and he agreed to talk to detectives, and after this conversation, detectives are convinced that Dan kidnapped Kevin. Police do think that Jack Chow knows more than he's saying. The Collins family agreed to an immunity deal with Jack Chow that would permit him to speak more about what he knows, and police said that they would do it, but they never have. Kevin's family is scared that Jack will pass away before they can get more information, and they really believe that Dan is responsible. They feel like they're getting closer, but that justice will never occur until they know what happened. The family continues to keep saying his name and pushing the police to find out what happened. On the last day Kevin was seen, he had a project at school to make a Valentine's card, and it read, "Dear Mom and Dad, I hope you don't have to spend a lot of money. I hope you have a good Valentine's Day. Love, Kevin." And Anne and David believe that Kevin would not have run away, and they believe he was kidnapped and likely murdered. This still is an open investigation. They have released age progression photos of what they believe Kevin would look like at 39 years old. Obviously, we will share those. If you have any information, please call the San Francisco Police Department Cold Case Division at 415-553-1145. And that is the heartbreaking disappearance of Kevin Collins.
Yeah, just such a sad one because it's like you feel like you know what happened. Like
Yeah.
I really do feel like it probably was. I mean, it's just so hard to believe that Kevin was possibly seen talking to this guy with a Great Dane who fits Dan Therian's description. Dan Therian
Yeah.
has multiple charges for kidnapping, molesting, raping, young boys. And we know
Mm-hmm.
typically, offenders escalate. So that
Yeah.
would be the next logical escalation. And the fact that the Collins family is like, tell Jack Chow, like, no, nothing. We don't want any charges. We just want to know what happened. And the police
Yeah.
like have not done it. And it's like
Just so
you fucked up
sad.
this case back in 1984. And now you're fucking it up again. Like, will you just give this
Mm-hmm.
family some closure? Like the family keeps having to push for you to like figure this out.
Yeah, which is so sad because they're like, we just want to know what happened. And did they find out who the bones did belong to that they found in the garage?
They didn't say,
'Cause it's like
which
how
it's
many
there. It could be
other
another victim.
boys? Yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah.
how many other boys did this happen to? And how many other boys that don't have a family advocating for him like Kevin's family that we may never know, that these other boys were even missing and their remains are somewhere.
Which is just crazy to me too. Like I was thinking about like the Jack Chow of it all, where I'm like, you knew why this man was running and you went with him.
Yeah.
So,
So I'm not surprised if he's hiding information that he does have because it's like, my guy,
yeah.
you were a little involved as well if that's the
Yeah,
case.
because after he dies, he goes back to Canada because
Yeah.
he can live there again. I'm like,
Like,
I
yeah. Well, I guess there's no other way to transition. Courtney,
know.
what is your perk of the week?
So we had a little teaser about my perk of the
Hmm.
week last week, and I decided we're not going to do it early because you
We're
never
not
know.
jinxing anything.
We're not jinxing anything, and Lord knows, or have there been bumps in the everything went smoothly. It's just a few
Yeah.
little bit of turbulence.
Hmm.
Um, but I am officially a homeowner. So Kevin and
Yes.
I bought a house. We own a house. We moved in this weekend. Double perk of the week. Shout out to Jacqueline and Andrew because it would not have been possible without them. Um, help was dropping like flies.
Yes.
Somehow in 2024, people are still getting COVID.
Like, is
That's
that still a
crazy.
thing? That's so 3 years ago, guys.
That's so 3 years ago. Come on now. But just crazy turn of events. But we did it. We got here,
Yes.
we're moved in, we have the house, we have the mortgage, we're here.
All the fun stuff.
The fun stuff. But very exciting. It
Hmm.
didn't feel like with the state of things that I would ever actually be able to own a house because there's so many hurdles these days just with,
Yeah.
you know, housing prices and competitive offers and like, our sellers said it's like not a lie that people from California are buying up houses in Tennessee with all cash offers. He was like, 9 of my 10 last houses have had an offer like that. So it's like,
Hmm.
it's hard to be competitive, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but we did it. We were competitive enough. So,
Especially because people are selling their houses in states where like the cost of living is way higher than it is here. And then
mhm,
they can buy like multiple houses here, but they also typically still have the income from the state they're coming from versus our wages here do not match what your real
mhm.
estate market there matches. It's a mess.
It's a mess, a mess. And then like there's also this weird thing right now too. Like people are selling their houses and thinking they can get a couple of years ago prices, even like last year
Yeah.
prices, because like the amount of houses we looked at that were almost the same price as this one, our house was basically flipped. Like the guy bought
Hmm.
it, flipped it, and sold it. The amount of houses we looked at that were like down bad,
Yeah.
like down bad. And we're trying to sell them for like 325. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you clearly have like extensive, like this is a project. And
Hmm.
most of the houses we looked at are still sitting on the market.
Yeah.
So,
Like you said, people are like thinking it's 3 years ago and they're like, oh yeah, we can put this on here for this. And it's like the house across from me is still for sale and has been
mhm.
for like 2 months now, which was unheard of 2 years ago. Like nothing
Yeah.
would sit. Like you couldn't see a house twice. Like you had to put in an offer like the day
Yeah.
of, like as soon as you left if you wanted something. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy,
So,
but we are very happy for you and it's very exciting.
yes, it's very exciting. It's still a lot to do, but very excited. It's so nice to know like I can do whatever I want.
Hmm.
But if it
It's
breaks,
the
I
fun
have to
part
fix
now.
it.
Yeah, that is the not fun part. That is the scary
Yeah,
part.
that's the scary part. But anyway, so that is my perk of the week. Jacqueline, what is your perk of the week?
I mean, I don't feel like I should even talk at this point because it's like, so my perk of the week is just decaf lattes, okay? Because Courtney is laughing so hard at me.
Oh
We're
my
we're just on
God.
we're just on different levels right now about what's bringing
You
us
already had all
joy.
your success. So whenever you were all, I bought a house, I sold a house, I'm moving to Knoxville, I'm having a baby, I'm having another baby. I was over here like, my perk of the week is grass.
And now that's
Oh.
me. I had my hummingbirds recently. I had my lemonade sour patch kid. And now I have decaf lattes. But
Oh.
being pregnant, I very much appreciate a decaf latte. And when I was pregnant with my first daughter, which I also lived in Richmond, so I don't know if this is a regional thing or if this was like a time thing. Like I don't know if it's just like a recent thing. You could not get like a decaf latte at any of like the local coffee shops there. Like we always had to go to Starbucks because
Hmm.
Starbucks would do a decaf latte, but none of the local coffee shops would. But here, everywhere does. Everywhere can do a decaf latte, and it's just very
Nice.
exciting, and it just
I
makes me
don't feel like it
happy.
should be that hard.
Because the one place that I asked, they're like, "Oh yeah, like we like make our own coffee, so we can make anything decaf. It's just a matter of like
Yeah.
how you roast them or how long. I don't know the process. I'm not a
Barista.
like no, but like, isn't there a word for like a person who like makes the coffee itself, or is it just a
Like the
barista?
beans?
Yeah, like the who like grinds them and does that whole. Maybe it's just a barista. I don't know. Anyway,
I don't know.
I don't do either of those things clearly, but yeah. So she was like, "Oh, like we like make our own, so like we can make a decaf no problem." So like, wow, because like I said, 3 years ago, I could never get a decaf latte, and now I can get all kinds of decaf lattes, and it's
Nice.
lovely. So that's my perk of the week. So I also, speaking of helping Courtney move, the day that we went over there, because I usually have my one caffeinated beverage at my house in the morning. So by the time I'm like out somewhere, like that's why I can't get a regular latte. What would I allow myself to have? You do you if you are pregnant and drinking more caffeine, no judgment. But so anytime we're like out and about, like I never get like a caffeinated beverage, but they've had this campfire cold brew for like all summer. And so I finally got to try it because we were out first thing in the morning on the way to your house to help you move. And it was delicious. And it gave me the energy I needed to keep going that day because we also had to move two houses that day because my cousin
Yeah.
also moved into a new house the same day. So we just had back-to-back
Everybody was
moving
moving
parties.
that day.
Yes. But everyone's
And
all
of
moved
course,
in.
my apartment had two sets of stairs, and the new house has a
Yes.
set of stairs. I think it was after you left, we are like back at the house, and Ashton was like, "My Fitbit just said I've walked 50 flights, like
Oh my
50 floors.
gosh.
Like that's how many times
I
she's gone
believe it.
up, down, because it was
There's so many stairs
nonstop.
there. Yeah.
They're so painful.
Yeah, which
My
is also kind
legs
of terrifying
hurt so
carrying
bad.
things down all those stairs when you're 6 months pregnant. Like I was
I
like
know. I was
balancing
like,
so well.
please put things down. Would you like to carry this pillow?
The few times I like tried to pick something up and they're like, no, just to walk away.
It was like when you're trying to carry my desk and there was like this one wire that was like right up it, and I was like, this is some Final Destination shit where it's just gonna no, put it
Like we're
down.
not having a baby here today, okay? We
You
already
are not getting your stomach sliced off. No C-sections today.
I saw two. Sorry, side story. Um, this TikTok of like this man making a joke of like, oh, I'm like preparing for like my night's sleep in the hospital or whatever. And he's like sleeping on like his kitchen counter and like two like chairs pushed together and, just silly
Hmm.
stuff like that. And, of course, you have people who are like mad at him, but I'm like, it's obviously a joke. Like, he's not
Yeah.
comparing. But then there were like a bunch of people who were like, oh, like that's why you have a home birth. And like his wife commented, she's like, I don't think I can do a C-section at home. I have a scheduled C-section. I don't think I'm
Yeah.
allowed to do that by myself.
Yeah. Um,
So yeah, if you guys want to tell us if you also bought a house, is August just moving month? Let us
mhm.
know. Um, no one's gonna message me about decaf lattes because no one else cares. If
They
you do, let
might.
me know. Um,
Tell us your thoughts on this case or any case recommendations you have. All that info is below in the show notes. And our most important platform is patreon.com/caffeinated crimes, where we have bonuses. We might have a Law and Order SVU bonus. You never know. We'll see.
yes.
Um, we have all that over there. Discord access, pin, sticker, just a lot of goodies at different levels. Yeah, but go check us out there.
And if you have not, please, as always, leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, give us a thumbs up on YouTube, any of those places where you can tell us that we are doing great and that you appreciate us. We appreciate that and we appreciate you. And I don't think we've gotten an Apple Podcast review in a long time. But also, as
Hmm.
I say that, I have not looked in a long time. So let me look and just make sure that I'm not talking out my ass.
And if we have a new one, we'll lead it.
We'll
Read
lead
it
it on air. We
here.
sure will. I don't know when the last time you looked, but this one's from March, and I don't know if I've read this one.
Okay.
So I'll just read
Read it to me
it.
and we'll see.
So it's from Hellings33, and they say, you two do a wonderful job with this show. I've been listening since about episode 10 or 11. So, wow, thank you.
Wow, thank you.
Thanks for still being here. Thanks for sticking through
10 or
some of those.
11. Those were the rough days.
Yeah, yeah, that was took us a minute to get our footing. So thanks for hanging around and believing in us.
Obviously, it's still struggling to get our footing because it took us a month and a half to figure out that my cord was broken.
And it took us
It took
how many 4 months to read your Apple Podcast review that we ask for every single week. Guys, we're sorry. We're trying our best, okay? We are
we're
we're still a
trying.
work in progress.
But we love you all so
We
much.
do.
And in the meantime, go have a cup of coffee.
And don't commit a crime.